Housing has become one of the most alarming problems of today's world. Prices spiraling out of control, little rental supply, low salaries, tiny apartments in deplorable conditions. If you've tried to rent an apartment recently, you most likely know how bad things are in your very own cities. It feels like everywhere is the same, like there's no way around it.
However, this is not the case of Vienna, the city that somehow cracked the code of affordable housing.
Here, in the capital of Austria, you can rent a spacious and beautiful apartment in a great neighborhood for way less than what people in London, Paris, or New York pay for a showbox. And not only that, nearly 75% of Vienna's population rents, and over half of those rental properties are part of the city's social housing system.
But how did they do it? What's their secret? And most importantly, could your city do the same? Let's figure it out. Let's be real. Access to affordable housing has become a huge problem in the last decade.
According to the United Nations, around 1.6 billion people worldwide lack adequate housing, and experts say this could rise up to 3 billion by 2030. Most of our cities have a dire housing shortage, and prices are rapidly becoming unaffordable everywhere, or already are.
But in Vienna, things are different. Instead of letting the private landlords and big corporations seize the housing market, Vienna took a different approach.
Experts usually call this approach the Vienna model, and it's one of the reasons why this city has some of the best affordable housing in the whole world. Instead of leaving housing to the market, the city actually builds and owns apartments, tons of them. And it's been doing this for over a century, following the principle that housing is a human right and not a business. But Vienna wasn't always like this, and it also had its problems in terms of accessible and affordable housing in the past. After the First World War, Vienna was a mess. The war had left people broke, famished, homeless, and desperate. A city of almost 2 million inhabitants, of which 300,000 people in the city had no access to decent living space. It was a city with the reputation for being one of the European cities with the worst housing conditions.
In this dire situation, the government had to make a choice. Either let the market handle it, or step in and build housing for their people. And the city council chose the latter.
The Social Democrats, who won the municipal elections in 1919, went with a radical idea. Housing should be a public good and not a private commodity. This era became known as Red Vienna because of the city's socialist policies. And the first big step, a massive public housing initiative. So, in 1923, the city launched its first large-scale housing program.
Their goal was simple: to build 55,000 affordable apartments in just 10 years. And so they did.
These were well-designed, livable, beautiful homes, accessible for everyone regardless of their social class.
And one of the most famous examples is this place, the karl-marx-hof building, which is one of the biggest public housing complexes in the whole world.
It is home to 1,300 apartments with a size of 30 or 60 square meters each, and the building is surrounded by gardens and play areas. Massive complexes like the Karl-Marx-Hof, Hof, and George Washington Hof were built across the city, offering modern, affordable homes with amenities that most working-class people could only dream of. And Vienna kept building.
But the success of the Vienna model wasn't just in the number of houses built. It was also about how the system works.
So how does Vienna make this work? The city council, the Rathaus, has a very active land policy, buying land and mobilizing historical land reserves. The government used these lands to build new housing or lease it to non-profit corporations at a very low affordable price and under strict conditions. Consequently, the city has a good control over how housing is built, keeping it affordable and high quality.
In the 90s, Vienna decided to focus on a model offering subsidies to non-profit companies. thus giving birth to the social housing system. So Vienna's model is basically a combination of municipally owned housing, that is strictly public housing owned by the government, the city council, which is known as Gemeindebauten, and non-profit cooperative housing.
The key difference: municipal housing is directly owned and managed by the city, while limited profit housing is built and run by non-profit and limited profit associations that must reinvest any profits into maintenance and new housing.
These cooperatives receive subsidies but must also comply with affordability regulations, thus ensuring that rents remain low and stable.
As of 2025, the city directly owns around 220,000 apartments, while limited profit cooperatives manage an additional 200,000 units. Together, this accounts for nearly 45% of the total housing stock. However, when looking at only rental properties, 55% are owned by the city or non-profit cooperatives, the limited profit cooperatives, proving the strength of Vienna's social housing in the rental market. If we keep our focus on rentals in Vienna, we can see that the city's housing landscape is predominantly rental-based, with approximately 75% of the city's main residences being rental apartments, which is pretty high. Why? Because Vienna's housing system is not just for low-income residents, but also for the middle class. Even in private rentals, Vienna has rent control laws that prevent landlords from driving up prices. All this prevents the creation of ghettos and enhances the social cohesion of the city. It is also important to note that as you get older or your income increases, you're not pushed out of your social housing. So this system ends up keeping people in these communities, thus strengthening community building. Vienna, rather than setting rent based on market speculation, calculates rent based on the actual cost of construction, maintenance, and reasonable return.
The results: rents that are significantly lower than in other European capitals, while allowing for high-quality, well-maintained buildings.
Last but not least, the city council and the corporations do not just build housing, they must build well-planned, livable, high-quality neighborhoods. This means that new developments maintain high-density but human-scale living, preventing urban sprawl while keeping areas walkable and accessible. They are located near parks and green spaces to enhance quality of life. They include mixed-use zoning, with schools, shops, and transport hubs nearby, and follow strict sustainability standards with energy-efficient designs and eco-friendly materials.
So as you can see, Vienna's careful planning means that social housing isn't just affordable, but is also attractive and desirable by the population.
In practical terms, what this system allows is that a young professional, a teacher, or even a retiree can afford to live in a well-designed apartment close to the city center. It also means people spend less of their income on rent, leaving more for education, travel, cultural and leisure activities, and savings. This way, Vienna can ensure a better present and future for its inhabitants.
Because this model is not stuck in the past, it keeps innovating and adapting to the new challenges and current times. One example of that is Aspern Seestadt, one of Europe's largest urban development projects. This new district follows the same social housing principles, but integrates new smart city technologies like energy-efficient buildings, car-free zones, and high-tech public transport to create livable, sustainable future. In Seestadt, 60-70% of the apartments will be allocated to social housing, some of which will be designed by their occupants. Because indeed, the city council is actually implementing a subsidized, collaborative housing model.
This approach not only allows for people to literally create their own homes, but also allows for people to think of many other things linked to their community life in the area, like co-working spaces, rooms for seminars, big kitchens that can be used by everyone, etc., etc. thus enhancing community building and social cohesion in the area.
And it's because of these efforts and local policies that Vienna remains one of the most affordable European capitals in terms of housing costs, with an average rent per square meter significantly lower than in cities like London or Paris. And it is also the reason why the Viennese seem so engaged with their housing city model.
So after having seen all that, could your city do the same? Yes, it could. But the conditional is important here, because Vienna's success is not just about implementing specific policies, but also about a mindset shift. Cities need to start treating housing as infrastructure, as a public good, rather than as a commodity to be traded. Vienna is well aware that having adequate housing is a human right, not a privilege reserved for the rich. In this sense, Vienna shows that cities need to take control of land, regulate rent effectively, and support non-profit housing models that prioritize long-term affordability over short-term profits.
Indeed, there are even more factors and insights that could not be covered in today's video, but I encourage you to share them in the comments down below. Of course, this won't happen overnight, and every city is different, but Vienna's past and present proves that this is something worth trying. Because when housing becomes more affordable, cities become more livable, economies more resilient, and people happier. And isn't that why cities exist in the first place? Thank you very much, and have a nice day. Peace.